When Tracy realized Brooklyn was gone, a wave of fear washed over her. She looked beneath every bed, in every cabinet, and even in the laundry basket. All places her daughter liked to hide in the apartment. Finding Brooklyn's abandoned backpack in the corner of the hallway and the front door ajar only served to heighten her anxiety as they hurried to get her to daycare. Brooklyn. With her heart racing, Tracy yelled out in despair when she peered out the foggy window. She beheld Brooklyn in her crimson gown, her naivete blissfully unaware of the peril. As Brooklyn aimlessly approached a truck, someone called out to her from out of sight, and Tracy was overcome with panic. She hurried outdoors. In a mad dash, Tracy's thoughts were racing with fear. Every second felt excruciatingly slow, even though I was running at full pace. As she got closer to the truck's driver's side, she saw Brooklyn, whose little stature stood in stark contrast to the enormous vehicle. As Tracy drew near, she noticed Brooklyn looking innocently up at the driver, which brought a wave of relief over her. From his elevated position, he beamed a friendly smile at Tracy and Brooklyn. Tall and powerful, with his eyes covered by sunglasses, David made quite an impression. With the morning garbage run behind him, he put on his bright green fluorescent vest and hit the road. He was obviously familiar with Brooklyn, as she giggled at something he said. After hearing the truck pull up, Brooklyn eagerly went outdoors, while Tracy stayed in the adjacent room to apply cosmetics. Brooklyn loved meeting David in person and anxiously awaited his arrival every Thursday, oblivious to the hazards that were ahead. How could she have failed to notice Brooklyn slipping out? Tracy was mortified by her carelessness. It genuinely upset her to think about her kid talking to strangers on the street, fearing that fortune might not always smile upon them. She felt compelled to inform Brooklyn about the danger without scaring her. Tracy couldn't help but tremble when she waited nervously at the window. She paced anxiously, remembering the sound of shattered bottles and the crunch of tires on asphalt that had long preceded David's arrival. Even though it was already 7:30 on top of being Brooklyn's birthday, today was Thursday, delicately adorned with a blend of Brooklyn's cherished hues. Tracy's adored cupcakes were prepared and served. As a sign of her admiration, Brooklyn held onto something precious and excitedly anticipated David's arrival. It was almost too much for Brooklyn to handle when she heard the trash truck was about to arrive, with Tracy trailing closely after to keep a watch on her. She grabbed one of her cupcakes and hurried out the front door. An unusual sight greeted David when he pulled up outside the residence, a small blonde girl, dressed to the nines, standing on the sidewalk. In a timid manner, Brooklyn was pulled forward by Tracy and handed the priceless birthday cupcake to David. The impact on David was immense. He was very moved by the innocent act of this young girl. He promised to reciprocate by doing something extraordinary for her. With bated breath, Brooklyn and her family prepared for his weekly rounds, always wondering what delightful surprise he may bring next. David was unable to carry out his scheme for 6 months. To last, he arrived to the residence with thoughtfully selected presents on his own birthday in October, after he found out that his wife loved the movie Frozen. He surprised Brooklyn with an Elsa doll and a huge basket full of Frozen-themed items. As news of David and Brooklyn's gift-giving custom spread like wildfire, it lasted for 2 years and won over fans all over the globe. Even people in Japan wrote to David to tell him how nice he was. He misses Brooklyn much, even though he left his job as a sanitation specialist in Bloomington for other prospects. David said, looking back on the touching event. It doesn't matter if I work for State Farm as a CFO or as a garbage man. Each of us must find our calling and use it to change the world. My interest is mentoring young people. And I feel that by utilizing my skill, I'm improving everyone's lives, not just the people at work.
After watching the first story above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Now, let's watch another similar story. After a homeless man and a little girl shared a meal, the man gave the child a message the following day that broke her heart. Jude Roberts walked icily around his kitchen while he yelled out, "This isn't happening," on the phone. When he found out that all of his investors had pulled out, his heart raced. His hard-earned business as a black man had crumbled in the blink of an eye. He had sacrificed everything for the sake of his family's future, but now it had all fallen apart. He had no idea that his 6-year-old daughter, Maya, was listening from the staircase. He had intended to keep her in the dark for a little longer, but she realized how serious the issue was. She may have been little, but she sensed her father's devotion to his business. Trouble was on the horizon when she heard his anxious voice and serious remarks. Wearing her school uniform, Maya stealthily made her way back to her room, where she retrieved her battered shoes and ragged backpack. She gathered all her positive energy and stared at the worn fabric for a moment. "Dad, I'm ready," she exclaimed as she dashed downstairs. As Jude attempted to hide his worries about their future, her excitement put a smile on his anxious face. Maya glanced across at her worried-looking father when he frantically ate breakfast. He was hooked to his phone. He smiled forcibly every time he looked up at her. She looked across at him as soon as she had finished eating. Maya waved and went off to school after Jude gave her lunchbox, embraced her, kissed her forehead, and wished her a nice day. She was accustomed to the brief stroll from her home to her school. Normally, her best friend would accompany her. But that morning she strolled alone, her mind consumed by concerns for her father and a desire for things to quickly go back to normal. While Maya was out on her walk, she saw a woman dragging her children into the school bus. The picture brought back a flood of memories of Maya's mother, Sally Roberts, who had died 2 years prior. Maya and her dad were still grieving the loss. The sight of her mother's grin and the warmth of her hug resurfaced in her thoughts. The absence of her mother was profoundly felt by Maya. As Maya turned onto the next street, she observed something out of the ordinary, a man sitting on a verdant chair. Because of his look and the empty bowl of arms next to him, Maya deduced that he was homeless, and it was unusual to see someone there. Even though it was hot outside, he was cold. Maya recalled her mother informing her that being hungry made one more susceptible to cold. Maya felt a twinge of compassion when she thought the man might be starving. Her mother had instilled in her a lifelong appreciation for helping others by telling her own experiences of the joy and satisfaction that came from doing so. They would go to orphanages together, delivering food and witnessing the smiles on the kids' cheeks. Maya went over to the man without a second thought, reached inside her lunchbox, and offered him a sandwich. After a brief exchange of glances, the man graciously accepted it. With a friendly grin, Maya greeted him and urged him to have some food. She observed Joseph's evident hunger when he enthusiastically gobbled the sandwich. He sighs in contentment as he finishes the food and thanks her profusely. Maya introduced herself and let out a quiet laugh. In appreciation for the girl's thoughtfulness, Joseph grinned brightly and gave her his name, expressing his profound gratitude. Meeting such a beautiful young woman was a privilege, he said. Maya remarked that she needed to go to school. While laughing, she said her goodbyes to Joseph and then skipped over to the nearby school. As she skittered away, Joseph couldn't help but smile. He thought the girl's parents did a wonderful job raising a polite and kind girl. On that morning, he had been passed by a great number of people, but only Maya had twice looked at him without flinching or dodging. He was very moved by her selfless gesture of offering him her meal. Maya breezed through her English and math studies at school, contributing thoughtfully and earning high marks from her instructors along the way. But when she was eating lunch, some older students picked on her for her hairstyle and made fun of her old shoes and bag. Their taunting and name-calling was cruel. Tearfully, Maya ran to the bathroom to escape her humiliation. She longed for the company of her best friend at school and desperately missed her mother. Maya spent the majority of the afternoon sobbing and alone in the restroom, impatient to get back to her safe house. She was one of the first students to rush out of the building as soon as school let out. Joseph was in his customary spot when she passed by on her way. Maya approached him when he grinned broadly and waved. They strolled over to a park nearby and took a seat. Joseph observed Maya's puffy eyes and sensed something was bothering her. There was a little pause before she spoke out, expressing her annoyance and summarizing everything that had transpired that afternoon. She talked on how much she missed her mother and expressed concern about her father's financial difficulties. Joseph listened intently as Maya let out her frustrations and melancholy. After she was done, he told her not to worry and expressed his faith that all will work out in the end. He smiled nostalgically and started telling Maya about his own family. He talked warmly about his late wife, who had died a long time ago. Joseph talked solemnly about how he had become homeless, just like Maya and her father, and how much he still missed her. He talked about how hard it was for him to support his kids after his wife passed away, and how he failed to find employment in the interim. Joseph underlined that he had taught his kids solid morals and urged them to never forget their heritage or their parents' lessons. He remembered a particularly trying time when their landlord, enraged because Joseph hadn't paid rent for 3 months, had stormed into their house one chilly morning. Joseph's children were so afraid of the landlord's harsh remarks and threats that they huddled together in fear. Despite their disparate situations, Joseph and Maya felt a feeling of understanding and connection when he shared these recollections with her. After inhaling deeply, Joseph turned to face his children. He opened his mouth to smile, but it stayed closed. "Don't worry," he answered, a little shaky in his voice. "I swear that I will take action. We're not going to end up homeless." However, tears filled his eyes as he spoke. He made an attempt to push them aside, but his embarrassment and terror were too great. He collapsed, falling to his knees and sobbing like a little child. The kids took turns putting their tiny arms around their father's shoulders as they witnessed him in such agony. The family's desperation was evident when they clutched to one another, a devastating sight. Joseph returned home 6 months after this incident with some excellent news. They had been blessed. At last, his morality and goodness had paid off. They no longer had to worry about food, clothing, or anything else in order to live comfortably. They had suddenly become wealthy. They moved out of their old, decrepit flat and into a large, gorgeous house the following week. The kids were thrilled to learn they would each get a room as they marveled at their surroundings. A few weeks later, the family was having a feast in their new house after Joseph had enrolled them right away in one of the city's top schools. A knock on their door startled them while they were enjoying their lunch. When Joseph stood to respond, he was taken aback to realize that police officers were present. Joseph was handcuffed when the police made an announcement about his arrest. The police were urged to leave him alone by his children. The smallest one exclaimed, "Don't injure my dad. You're taking him where? Daddy isn't a bad guy." They thought the cops had the incorrect guy in custody and that their father was incapable of doing anything wrong. Sadly, it was discovered that Joseph had taken part in a fraudulent scam. He'd heard from a friend about a romantic scam that could con an affluent woman out of a substantial sum of money. Joseph had made a grave error by caving into pressure from his financial difficulties and his incapacity to care for his children. In the end, Joseph consented to participate in his friend's plan. This clarified the sudden income that led him to do things he had previously believed he would never be able to accomplish, like move his family into a larger home and take them on vacations. After apprehending one of the offenders, the police were able to link Joseph to the crime. His kids didn't think their dad was capable of committing such a thing. After a court trial, Joseph received a 20 years prison sentence. When he heard this, he turned to face his kids and started crying. "My children, please forgive me," he begged. "I took that action to meet your needs. I sincerely apologize for letting you down." As the prison guards dragged him away, he sobbed. Joseph could still picture his kids' stunned and disappointed expressions from that day. He worried for his kids and regretted everything he did every day for 20 years. When he was finally freed, he was too ashamed to confront them and turned to living on the streets, thinking that this was his just deserts for his transgressions. While the old guy told his story, Maya listened with a sorrowful expression on her face. After he finished, she grasped his hand and saw the depth of his longing for his family. Then it would be too late, Maya said. He should go see them. You'll regret it if you go on with your life without seeing your family and asking for their forgiveness at least once, she warned, drawing from her own experience of loss and longing. She urged Joseph to make the most of this opportunity to be with his family again. Joseph paid attention to Maya's words of wisdom. She was absolutely right. He wanted to meet his kids one last time before he passed away so he could beg for their forgiveness. He stood up and thanked Maya for her wisdom after they continued talking for a little longer. Without worrying about her father, he would rush home, he said. Maya grinned when she felt her spirits rise following their chat. With a quick wave, she sped home. Maya heard sobbing as soon as she opened the front door. She hurried into the living room in a state of panic and found her father sobbing. She hurried over to inquire about his well-being. For an instant, Jude Roberts saw his late wife Sally reflected in his daughter's worried expression. His company had collapsed, he informed her, and they had nothing left to show for all his hard work. He had no idea how they would make it. Feeling like he had let his daughter down, Jude broke down in tears when she watched him. Maya smiled at her father and lifted his chin, overcome with a wave of optimism. She reassured him that everything would be all right and advised him not to fret too much. Recalling Joseph's assurances that everything would be okay, the naive girl put her trust in them. Jude looked perplexed as he glanced at his daughter, trying to make sense of her seemingly unwavering faith. Seeing his daughter in such a good light brought a wave of pride and some solace to him. If Maya's mother were still with them, she would have reassured them not to be concerned, she informed him. Remembering Sally and her dogged expression whenever things went wrong brought them to tears and laughter. As they perused photo albums featuring the stunning woman from her heyday, they couldn't help but think about Sally and their shared memories. That night, when Maya and her father cuddled up on the couch, they both drifted off to sleep. The following day, a positive energy swept through the home. Maya reassured her father that everything would be all right before she left for school. Jude saw his daughter joyfully skip out of the house, which gave him hope and encouraged him not to give up on her easy. Maya was worried when she discovered that Joseph's normal position was empty. Despite her fears, she persisted in attending school that day, staying close to her best friend and avoiding the bullies. As the last bell sounded, Maya was able to let out a sigh of relief because the school day had gone swimmingly. She double-checked Joseph's location on her way home, but it remained vacant. As she got closer to his tent, she noticed that it had been empty, which made her worry even more. She discovered a rock resting atop a sheet of paper there. Maya took the rock and, after unfolding the paper, saw a letter that had been written by Joseph. My sap Maya, Joseph here. I apologize for having to leave so abruptly, but I had to get going. Yesterday, you said something that has stuck with me, that I should ask my family for forgiveness. I made up my mind to go looking for them this morning, in Alabama, where we currently reside. I intend to begin my search. You're really adorable, my darling. Seeing the beautiful daughter she gave birth to must have made your mom very proud. Also, stick with your dad no matter what, stay by his side and offer unwavering support. Once again, I am grateful for your generosity that day. A tiny child offering me food was the last thing I anticipated, rest assured. I will return to visit you at a later date. My sincere wish is that we can still share a home-cooked lunch at some point. You will remain in my memory, my love. Greetings, old man Joseph. As she read the letter, Maya broke down into tears and smiled at the same time. It had been a very long time since Joseph had seen his family, and she was pleased that he would finally be able to see them. She had high hopes that his children would forgive him and welcome him, so that they might be reunited. She returned home and told her father everything that had occurred over the course of the previous 2 days, beginning with the fact that she had given Joseph her lunch and ending with the discovery of the letter. After hearing everything, Jude was proud of her and amazed by it all. He, too, had the hope that Joseph would locate his family and work toward making amends with them. Over the course of several weeks, Maya and her father continued to face serious financial challenges. For the first time in his life, Jude was able to find a work as a store assistant. Although the salary was not particularly high, it was sufficient to ensure that they had enough food to eat and to keep their landlord at bay. Even though Maya was too young to be working, she wished she could be of more assistance. When Maya was studying in her bedroom on a Saturday afternoon, Jude was in the living room at that moment. There was a knock at the door. Jude was listening to the conversation. After Jude responded to it, he discovered Joseph standing there. Joseph made his introduction and detailed his relationship with Maya, as well as the location of their residence. The moment Jude realized what was going on, he called Maya downstairs. When Maya went to her living room, she was overjoyed to see Joseph there. Her expression of how much she had missed him was clear as she ran into his arms. During the time that Joseph was explaining the results of his journey, the three of them sat down. Greeting them with a grin, he informed them that he had located his children and that they had greeted him with wide arms upon his return. His offspring had been looking for him ever since he was released from prison, but they were unable to find him. They were concerned about his location. They had made amends and forgiven him for whatever, now that he had a place to live. Joseph was able to provide for himself by securing a part-time job and setting himself up for success. Joseph related how he had informed his children about the young girl who had inspired him to look for his family, and how they had expressed a wish to meet her. Maya and Jude were extended a cordial invitation by Joseph to join his family for dinner. Maya was overjoyed by the offer the following day, and she inquired with her father about the possibility of their attending. Jude grinned and nodded his head in agreement, assuring Joseph that they will be present for that evening's meal. The following day, the two families got together and became closer to one another as a result of their shared link through Maya and Joseph. They complimented Maya on her thoughtfulness and hard work, both of which had left a profound impression on Joseph's children. A conversation about business took place between Jude and Joseph's eldest son while they were eating supper together. They had developed a wonderful business plan by the time the evening came to a close, which left Jude feeling optimistic about the day ahead. As they went their separate ways, they had not only established new friendships but also laid the groundwork for a bright future. The business concept that Jude and Joseph had developed flourished beyond anyone's wildest dreams in the months that followed. Jude was able to achieve financial stability, and Maya was able to fully appreciate the new friendship she had developed. To a large extent, the relationship that started between a young girl and an elderly man was responsible for the strengthening of the connection that existed between the two families on a daily basis. After watching the stories above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comment section. If you enjoyed our video, please like, subscribe, and share our channel. That's all about today's stories. See you next time.